Hello, Lindsay. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well today, Aubrey. How are you doing? What's going on?
Excellent. I am curious, do you often go to comedy shows like stand-up
Actually,
comedians?
yes. We've been doing this a lot in the last year. And for my partner's birthday, we're going to a comedy with like a comedy and rescue dogs event. Like it's a
Oh,
perfect
like a
combination.
fundraiser?
Kind of, yeah, yeah.
That's
Where there'll be
cool.
dogs there and comedians, and we love both. So, yeah. Do
Amazing.
you
I
go to
love
comedy
that.
shows a lot? Do you like comedy?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. We found this company called, I think it's called like Hidden Comedy or something like that. It travels, so it's in
Cool.
all the different cities.
Yep.
And then you find out like that day what the venue is.
Oh,
And it's
cool.
just like random stores and places. It's not like a permanent retail. So you never
Cool.
know where it's going to be. And it's really fun. I like it.
Wow, it's fun, especially when I mean, usually it's a big mix of like talent and skill level with these shows, but usually you get one or two
Absolutely.
really good comedians and it's just fun,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And sometimes even the people who are newer and are sort of
Hmm.
trying out new material are often great. Like
For
so
sure.
fun. I love it.
For sure. Yeah. And so what kind of comedy questions could we maybe be asked on IELTS?
Yeah, this comes up a lot on IELTS. So, for example, on part one, you might be asked this: do you enjoy comedy shows? Or what
Hmm.
kind of sense of humor do you have? Or maybe, do
Yeah.
you think having a sense of humor is important in daily life? What about part
Ah.
two? You could also get a part two question about
Yep.
this.
This could be all over the speaking test, part one, two, and three. So in part two, again, this is the one where we have to speak for 2 minutes, guys.
Yes, yes.
Describe a person you know who has a great sense of humor. I mean,
Yes, right. Or
yeah.
describe a time you went to a comedy show. Like so many questions.
Hmm.
And part three, like you said, you might be asked, why do you think people enjoy being around those with a good sense of humor? Right. This sort of
Yeah.
more general question about it. Or
Yeah.
do you think humor is culturally specific? How might
Hmm.
jokes differ in other countries?
That would be a great question for Open Conversation Club. Side point.
It would actually. You're right.
You guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, when you join our courses, you're automatically invited to our Open Conversation Club, where twice a week we get together as a club and we practice speaking. And we always have really interesting questions like this one, right?
This is amazing practice for speaking part two. If you
Yeah.
don't have a speaking partner, if you're not able to meet with them as often as you would like, this is
Hmm.
weekly practice
Yeah.
where you're
Yeah.
basically answering part one and part two questions. It's
Hmm.
amazing practice.
Really good. And then a third question you might get on part three is, are there differences in humor between older and younger people in your country? Also really interesting.
Right?
Love
Is it
that.
generational? Oh,
Yeah.
very interesting. So you could
Yeah.
get any of these questions. You need high scoring specific vocabulary. So we're going to
Yeah.
teach a few phrases today that would be perfect for any of these questions. And then
Love it.
stay to the end. I'm going to answer a part two question, and Lindsay will give feedback. We'll pull out some of what would make
Hmm.
this a band nine answer.
Good. I'm looking forward to that. So when it comes to vocabulary, though, we can't just say funny. We have to say more than the word funny, right?
Yep. Yep.
Funny and jokes. What else could we say, Aubrey? What would be some new
Yeah.
idioms, new vocabulary?
So one is to crack a joke, which this
Hmm.
means to tell a joke or say something funny. For example, you might say, my friend is always cracking jokes at work to lighten the mood. So this is
Yeah.
just a band nine way of saying, telling a joke, saying something funny. So it's just less common,
Yeah,
idiomatic.
it's band nine because we know that, in the speaking text test next door to you, they're not using that term, right? They're not using those
Exactly.
words, the same words. So
They're
you
just
are
saying to tell a joke,
tell a
much more
joke, to
likely.
laugh, someone is funny. These are too basic, right?
Exactly.
Another one, burst out laughing, to suddenly start laughing. Michelle and I talked about this. I don't know if you've experienced this. You probably have, Aubrey. Sometimes, like, especially when you're a kid, you get these like laughing attacks, and maybe you and another friend, like something is so funny, but no one else is laughing. It's not a funny moment. Um,
Absolutely. And just out of nowhere,
yes.
you burst out laughing.
Yes,
It
and it's so
explodes out of
embarrassing.
you.
Oh my gosh. When she tripped on stage, the audience burst out laughing, right?
Ooh, this happened to me
Burst.
once. It was like a free throw, but sort of basketball thing
Yeah.
it was like halftime of a basketball game at high school. And I was
Mhm.
called down to do it, but I did not have good shoes for it. And I
Oh
tripped and
no.
fell and everyone was laughing.
Oh
Luckily, I was
no.
like kind of a not class clown, but I didn't mind that much. I wasn't like horrified, luckily.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
little
yeah.
embarrassing.
You took it in stride a little
I
bit, right?
did, yes.
Okay, good. And then laugh one's head off is another great one. This just means laughing really hard, to laugh a lot. What would be a sample sentence for that one, Aubrey?
You might say, we laughed our heads off watching that comedy movie. So this is loud, out loud laughing, that belly laughing
Hmm.
we talk
Yeah.
about, right? If you're just kind of quietly chuckling, you wouldn't say you laughed your head off. This is for loud, big laughter.
Yeah, we love this. Humans love to laugh. It's good for you. It sends all these hormones rushing through your body. It's a good thing, right? It's a good thing.
Absolutely.
In stitches is another one. So when you're laughing uncontrollably, so literally when we say we're in stitches, what are we saying? We say this for running sometimes too, like I have a stitch,
Oh
a
yeah,
side
stitch in my
stitch.
side. Yeah, it means
Yeah.
sort of like a pain in your
Yeah.
side. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is an idiom for laughing. You say, I am in stitches. I'm in stitches. It means
Hmm.
you're laughing so hard you cannot stop. You're probably crying, right?
Right, right, right.
This sometimes this will happen at like the most inopportune time. Something just strikes you as funny. Like sometimes you see this like on SNL when they're really trying to keep their composure and be serious, but you can
Yeah.
see they're fighting so hard to not laugh
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they were
yeah.
probably just in stitches a second ago and they're trying to
Right.
keep from laughing.
Or sometimes when you watch a movie at the end, there'll be outtakes of
Yes.
scenes and they'll show the stars kind of like dying of laughter after making a mistake in a take or something.
Yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love the outtakes.
Yeah, the
The
outtakes are really
bursts, I
fun.
think it's so
Really
funny.
fun.
Yes.
And then a barrel of laughs. So this is used to describe a person, right? So this is
Usually for a
interesting.
person who is really funny, we'll call them a
Hmm.
barrel of laughs.
Yeah,
Yes.
my best friend is a barrel of laughs. Everyone enjoys being around her. Whenever we go out, she has everyone in stitches, meaning, again, the pain in the stomach. Right. You're just laughing a lot.
Laughing so hard. And that does sometimes happen. You're laughing so hard that your
Oh,
stomach hurts or your
yeah.
mouth, like you're smiling so much that your
Oh,
mouth starts
totally.
hurting, your
Yeah, lots of
face.
physiological responses to laughter for sure.
Yes.
All right, Aubrey, now it's time for a sample. Yeah, shall we do this? So I'm going
Yes.
to get out my timer here.
All right. And I will
And
try to use a couple of the phrases that we taught here, but listen for other interesting vocabulary. I'll try to use some high scoring vocabulary, listen for intonation, linking phrases, all of those
mhm.
things that make, an answer, a part two answer, a band nine.
Yeah, and potentially a story or a little bit of an anecdote to
Almost
fill that
always,
time.
right?
Yeah.
In order to fill that 2 minutes, you have to tell some
Hmm. We need
story.
something. Need
Yes.
some material. Okay. I'll ask the question, then I'll start the timer. Describe a person you know who has a great sense of humor. Go.
Without a doubt, I have to talk about my neighbor, Ozzy. He actually did live improv when he was younger. And now, he's a dad. He doesn't have as many opportunities to actually perform on stage. But we, as his friends and neighbors, get to benefit of this amazing joviality that he has carried through his life, right? He is a barrel of laughs. We'll get together for a fire pit on weekend nights sometimes. And every time he's the one regaling us with these hilarious stories of things that happened in his college years. He was in a frat at ASU and crazy stuff was always happening there. The cops would show up and somebody's passed out in the back. And that was not my college experience. It's always funny, but especially because the way he tells a story, he just draws you in. And by the end, you're in stitches. Your stomach hurts. You're laughing so hard. And this happens every time we hang out. He also does a lot of physical comedy. Not many people do this. A lot of people can tell a joke, a pun, a dad joke, but he will like get up and sort of act out the whole story. He will like sing a song and jump and click his heels together. Just anything he can do to make the story more engaging, to make the listener laugh harder. And so it's so fun to always be in his presence. But the best is that not only is he good at telling jokes and being funny, he makes you feel funny. Like if ever I tell a joke or do something funny, he will laugh so hard, just like side splitting laughter. So I love cracking a joke when he's listening because he's the best audience. He appreciates my jokes and makes
All right,
me
that's
feel
two
really
minutes.
funny.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, you made me want to be friends with this guy.
He's the
Let's get an
best.
intro. This
I
is
should send this to
good.
him. He would probably be very flattered.
I know, I'm sure.
Or
What
he
a
would just be like,
great
it's true. It's true.
this
Where's
was
the
such
lie?
Oh gosh, what a good example. What a good sample answer, Aubrey. Really impressive because you used some of the words that we talked about. Then you threw in some super impressive stuff which I want to talk about here. So,
Awesome.
what I heard was first you started off with without a doubt. That's a really interesting way to start off a speaking part 2 answer because it's unique, right?
Yes, and it's the linking phrase. You were like, try, I always recommend
Mhm.
start with a linking phrase when it's top of mind, not later when you, I mean, yes, you need to
Yes.
use them later too, but if you can throw one in right at the beginning, kill two
Oh,
birds with one stone, right?
guys, that is a super smart strategy. Write that down and put it in your back pocket because that's a brilliant strategy. Make it easy on yourself to score a 7 or higher. Okay. This is
Yes.
one of the things to do. Top of mind, linking words right at the beginning. And then you threw in kind of an important, like, building block vocab term for comedy questions, live improv, right? We need to know. We didn't talk about
Yes.
improv initially, but it's just, what is it, Aubrey? It's kind of,
It's short for improvisation,
mhm.
where you're sort of coming up with a scene. It's often more than one person and they're
Yeah.
acting off each other. You have to
Hmm.
yes and the other person and just
Right.
create it as you go. You don't
Yeah.
have a script.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So good vocabulary. Then you came up with a real zinger, joviality. Amazing.
Ooh,
Amazing. I don't know if this was just
that's a $10
spontaneous,
word.
but very impressive, right? So someone who is jovial is, gregarious and fun and smiling and positive,
Yes, all
right?
of those
Mhm.
things, right? But that is
Yeah.
definitely a band nine word. I like, as I said it, I'm like, oh,
Yes.
nice. That's a good
Impressive.
band nine word.
Yeah, you're like giving yourself a band 9. There we go.
Exactly.
Um,
And it's true, though, that most people who do have a good sense of humor, are good at cracking jokes, are
yeah,
jovial. So
sure.
be ready with jovial as the adjective or joviality is the
Yeah.
noun.
I love that. And then he used one of our keywords from today, which is barrel of laughs. So that sounded like it fit perfectly for this guy that
Yes,
you're
he is a
describing
barrel of
us.
laughs.
And then you came up with another zinger, regaling us. Oh my gosh, this is not
Oh,
even in
that's
my, I
good.
mean, this is almost not even in my vocabulary.
I'll take that compliment because
Yep,
I know you have an
right.
impressive
Yeah.
vocabulary.
Yep,
But
yep.
this is a great verb when someone is telling a story, but
Yeah.
doing it in a really a good way,
Mm,
right? I would
love
say
it.
they are regaling us with a story.
Yeah, I love it. You used "you're in stitches," right, to describe how you normally are when he tells stories. So this is a good grammar form. So by the end of his stories, you are in stitches, right? So
Yes.
interesting way to use a diversity of grammar forms too. And then you
Yes.
did another interesting grammar construction. You said he will get up and act out his story. So again, now
Ooh.
using the future tense to talk about his habits, the things that he habitually does. Also interesting.
Yes. Ooh,
Right?
that is interesting. And the
Mm-hmm.
examiner would be like, ooh, I'm so excited. I can give a
Mm-hmm.
band nine for grammar. I'm seeing all these interesting constructions.
Yep. So big mic drop on that answer, Aubrey. You've got a band 9.
Well, thank you so much.
Nice.
I'm excited for all of you to have all of this great vocab. You might get asked about either your sense of humor or something more general. If you're just asked to describe a friend or describe what you like to do with friends, these are words you could also use in those answers if you have a friend that has
Mhm.
a good sense of humor.
And I think also your answer was so strong, partially because you have a lot of material. It's a true story, which is helpful, not required, but helpful. And you just enjoy being around the guy. So it's like you've got a lot of material to add, right? It
That's
helps.
true,
Yeah.
right? If you
Mhm.
can't off the top of your head think of someone who's funny, you might be tempted to answer this and say, like, I don't really know anyone that's funny. That would be a hard question to fill
Mm,
for 2 minutes. I think it would be better to make
yeah,
up, imagine a person who's so
sure.
funny and talk about them,
Yeah, I completely agree. This is one of
right?
the ones where you're going to need actual material. So think about, yeah, yeah,
Or
sometimes you
someone you
can
know who's just
disagree.
pretty entertaining, even if they're not
Yeah.
the funniest person, and exaggerate. For all
Yeah,
you
and
know, a
yeah.
lot of that could have been made up, and it's just a guy who tells
Yeah.
dad jokes.
Oh yeah, it could totally be fake. It
Right.
doesn't matter for me who the person that's scoring your exam. And
No,
you
they
can
don't
also
care. They
think
don't know.
exactly. And then thinking about these themes, so comedy, or maybe there's questions about horror films. Like you could define a funny person in a lot of different ways. Someone that's
Yes.
clumsy, as that you could fit that in there too. If you don't know anyone that's funny that does like improv traditional comedy, it could be someone that's clumsy, and you could explain how that's funny in a way. Don't you think, Aubrey?
Yes, absolutely. That could totally work. And this question's
Mhm.
interesting because you don't have to actually be funny to have a great sense of humor. You
Yeah.
can just be someone who laughs easily,
Yes.
who, like I was saying at the end, like also it's having a great sense of humor to laugh at other things and find other things funny. So
Yeah.
you could just
Yeah, yeah,
talk
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
someone who laughs easily.
Yeah, that's a better because the question is actually someone who has a great sense of humor, not someone who's
Right.
funny. But so
Right.
that's a better response. So I think, yeah, sense of humor could be described in a lot of ways. It doesn't have
Yeah,
to be that
absolutely.
person standing on stage with the mic, at the comedy night, right?
Right.
So
And you could
really good.
describe yourself, right? The
Sure, yeah.
examiner doesn't care if you sound a little prideful. You'd be like,
Yeah.
honestly, I have a great sense of humor. And then
Yeah.
share.
And you could lie, even if you don't, you could
That's
pretend you do.
true.
And maybe that's how you wish you were, and maybe make that up. So there's a lot of options. It
Absolutely.
feels like a very specific question, but there's a lot of ways we could take this to score 7, 8, or 9. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Good.
And use this vocab, high scoring vocab. Like you said, I love that. The person in the next room probably
Hmm.
doesn't know it unless they're listening to IELTS Energy. I hope they are.
That's true. That could happen. I mean, there you go. Guys, go on and check out IELTS Energy 1556, Speaking Part 1 Answers about impeccable hotel stays. We had some fun conversations about our preferences in hotels and how you might answer this question. Okay.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay. Really fun. I will see you next time.
Great stuff, Aubrey. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.